So we get back from Tacoma, installing that PA, and the world is basically shut down. There's nothing to do. There's all the tours, shows, etc. Everything's canceled. Everything's postponed, or I guess it's about half and half. Most of them postponed. The rest of them is just canceled outright. So there's nothing to do. So I started just doing some stuff around the house, and one of the things I did was I moved the computer from the shop into my bedroom. A little desk set up in here, and just to stay warm and stay away from out of the shop. It's chilly out there. But this case, it's just not. It's what it is. It's a 2004, 2005 vintage case, and back in those days, there was really no need for cooling as much as there is today. Uh, and I just used it because I had it here, and it was the old Tombstone Music PC that we used for the website builds and the merchandising and so forth. And we've since gone way away from this thing. And so this was just basically an old case I had laying around. And when I got the computer, you can see those videos, computer build 1, part 1, and part 2. Shows how I put all this together. In any case, I decided to get a new one. So this is the one I decided on. It was very cheap. I think I paid like $44 for it on Amazon, and I got these 3-pack of fans for like $13.99 and it was scheduled to be delivered on the 22nd, which I believe was like Tuesday. But I was just checked the delivery, and there it was. Surprise! It was out for delivery, and I was like, "Oh my God, this is exciting! I get to do something today." So I kind of kept an eye on the Amazon progress, and I was getting more excited and more excited, and I was the next stop. Yay! I was so happy, and I ran down, and there it is. Got it. So I figured, man, this is going to be awesome. I'm going to have something to do today. Bernie wasn't too impressed. He's just like, "Yeah, Dad, whatever. You play with me or play with your computer. Which one is it?" So anyway, so I decided to get in here, and this is the old case. It was working fine. It was just running a little warm inside the case. So I decided to, and I'll show you why. First of all, I'm just going to tear this thing apart, get all the cables unplugged. And I guess for people who have known me for a long time, I used to be in the computer business. I think I did that probably for 20 years, 25 years in a previous life. I used to build computers, a lot of them. We did. I worked for what was called a VAR, a value added reseller. And during that time, I also did a lot of work with a client that we did trade shows with and trainings and so forth. And there was a period of time, in probably in the late 90s, that was becoming pretty clear to the industry and to these large companies that I was working for at the time, that the value-added reseller business was going to disappear, and it was going to be, oh, there's the video card. Sorry, I have to interrupt that. But there was going to be clear that the value-added reseller business was not going to be a viable option in the future, and what it was going to end up doing was moving into what we now know as an SI, or a system integrator. Examples of that are Dell, HP. There's a few other. They're basically not very many. In the old days, the VARs were everywhere. There was probably, I don't know, in Portland alone, there was probably 20, maybe 30. I don't know, a lot of them. Competition was pretty stiff. We had a lot of clients that we dealt with. We did manufacturing companies. We did tool and die, CAD/CAM systems, machine control. Lawyers, oh boy, law firms. We did a lot of work for law firms. I mean, hundreds of computers into law firms, some of the bigger law firms in Portland. And again, as I said, the value-added reseller business back in those days was pretty intense competition because everybody built their own version of whatever it was, and then they had to service them as well. So it was kind of a twofold business. So we had a little small shop where we built these things, a half a dozen to a dozen a day, depending on how many were on order. And then the rest of the part of the day would be, or at least some of us would be, going out to service them. So I'd have a broken hard drive, or their floppy wouldn't read, or whatever it was. It was silly stuff usually. That's what I did. And until I think it was probably, well, it was '01, I think, is finally when I got out of that business and decided to go back into the music business, music production business, which was the sound field, because I saw it. I saw the writing on the wall, and it was true. It really wasn't that much longer, that the company that I'd worked for so many years, I think it was probably, I think it was 7 or 8 years. I'd worked for one little VAR. They just flat out went out of business. There just wasn't any work, and I kind of hate to say it now, but I told you so. That was going to happen. I did tell them. I said, listen, I'm going to these conferences, I'm going to these trainings, and these people who know where the business is going, have their finger on the pulse of what is happening, are telling me that this business we're in is not going to be something that's going to be a long-term viability. And they just didn't listen to me. They thought I was high. But in any case, that's all past history. But the point I was trying to make was that I used to be pretty good at this stuff. But back in those days, in the 2000 era, early 2000s, everybody just kind of up and got out of the desktop PC business, and I pretty much exclusively were using laptops. I have had several dozen of them. I think I have, let me count in my head right now. I got one. Oh, I only have 2 left right now. I have 2 laptops, which is, I have one for travel and I have one for home. And then I built this system for fun more than anything. This is a 7th generation i5 system. The system board will handle an i7, but I have an i5 in here. And I may upgrade at some point to a 4-core, 8-thread i7 processor rather than the i5 4-core, 4-thread unit that's currently in here. Also, the video card is an older one. It's a GTX 1060 Ti rather than anything super fancy. But this is not a gaming machine, so it's not really necessary to have the latest and greatest video card. It does video editing very well. I've never had any issues with it. There is 32 gig of RAM in this system, so there's plenty of space for it to work. So in any case, here I am tearing this thing apart, and like I said, I used to be pretty good at this, but it's just like anything. It's a skill. If you don't use it, you pretty much have to kind of relearn it as you go. And here I am pulling out the system board. There's a little back plate thing that I painted to match the case. It was a silver thing, but I did spray paint it. So there's the system board. It's a nice board. It is an MSI 270 something. That's why I'm stuck with the 7th generation stuff. It's not a 300 series. The other part about this case was when I put this newer power supply in here, it was a EVGA 450 watt. The holes didn't line up and I ended up having to use some, it was kind of funky. I had to use some self-tapping screws because the holes did not line up. The standards have changed since this case, this 2004, 2005 case was built and the new systems were put in place. So that always kind of bugged me. My OCD was like, every time I looked at the back of that case, I was like, eh. But anyway, Also, you'll notice while I'm handling this system, I had it plugged in and grounded, so there was no possibility. There's the power supply, and it's a good one. It's all black, no ketchup mustard cables. And then I got the hard drives in here. I only used two. I had two of the small M2 SATA drives. One was a boot drive, one was a work drive, and then I have two other spinners in here. One's a smaller old laptop drive that I pulled out of a system years and years ago. It was a 290 gig unit, and then I have a 3.5-inch spinner. It's a 1 terabyte unit for basically for a lot of storage in there. So pull these drives out of this little card cage. So anyway, I decided to go with a different case for a bunch of different reasons. The primary reason was the cooling situation. The small 80 millimeter fan in this thing was just not, well, it wasn't designed to work with a system like this. It was designed to work with I don't know what we were building in those days. I guess it was Pentium something. For it was post 486 days. I know that. So we were in the Pentium era. It might have been Pentium 2 or 3 at that point. Those big cards. I got a couple of those laying around here somewhere. There's the terabyte unit, 3.5-inch drive. And then I'll put this little card cage in here just to keep it from getting lost or whatever. So there was a 180 millimeter drive on the back. The video card has a couple of 80 millimeter fans built into it, and then of course the as you can see right there, that CPU fan that's attached to the CPU, and that's another thing that I'll address later. But so here we are, just kind of finishing up, getting all the junk out of this case that I needed, and get that set aside. We'll get the new case out in a second. Get all my parts laid out so I easy access to them. And here's the new case. Do a little unboxing. I had already gotten the fans in stock 2 or 3 days before the case came in, because they just came in the mail. This actually came via a Amazon truck, one of the sprinters. Very nice gal. Dropped it off, and like I said, it came like 4 days earlier, so I was pretty excited about that. It gave me something to do anyway, and something to share with all of you. Thermaltake H21 is the model number. There's Thermaltake is a fairly well-regarded case and fan and accessories manufacturer. This one in particular is a very light case. It's made out of aluminum, whereas my old case was kind of heavy. It was made out of steel. But this one had all the current technology bells and whistles on it. It is I believe it's just a standard mid-tower micro ATX, ITX. It could probably handle a fairly large board. There's a lot of space in here. As you can see also, the design's different. That's the top of the unit right there. The power supply mounts on the bottom of this one, and the other case, it was all on the top. This case also had a much easier to access on and off switches, as well as front-mounted USB and audio. So that was instead of having to reach around the computer, no matter where it was always a pain in the ass to reach back there and plug something into it. If I wanted to plug in a microphone or a different set of speakers or whatever it was always a pain to reach back there and plug it into the motherboard. Now I have the ability to just plug whatever I want right into the front of the case, which is a really nice thing. So there's the new case. It has both sides are removable. These are thumb screws, which is also very cool. It's a toolless design, more or less, except for there's a few spots where you need a screwdriver attaching the power supply, the motherboard, the fans, that sort of thing. So you get both sides off here. Now, one of the really cool things that I like about this case, and all new modern cases frankly, are that there's a space on that side right there, the non-component side as it were, and you can see all those holes in the case. Those are for dressing cables. Here's the little accessory pack came with it, and it did have one of the holes in the card slot punched out, but they did give you one to put it in there if you're not going to use a external graphics card. I actually had to punch one more out because the card I have is a 2-slotter. But in any case, the holes are nice because the power supply, like I said, it mounts to the bottom of the thing, and you run the cables out through the back of this on the non-component side, and then you can pull the cables just where you need them. So it's a very clean look. I'll show you in a minute here. I'm actually, this video is a little bit out of sequence. I'm not very good at this. In any case, this is kind of me putting the motherboard in. I've already got the power supply in at this point, but in the next segment you'll see the cable dressing thing that I just got done talking about. The everything fits perfectly in terms of one other thing I wanted to mention about this case. It's a cheap case. One of the things that bothered me about it is that there's a front panel that pops off, and there's a little fan mounting thing that has 4 little tabs that you can pull in and out, and it holds into the case. But it's designed for 120 millimeter fans, which is what I got, but it didn't really have any way to attach the things. It only had these little tabs, which did fit, and they popped on there. But as soon as you pop that filter, the housing thing, here's the how they're routing the cables through the back of the thing. I'm kind of getting these organized. But in any case, getting back to the fan mounting panel, they just kind of popped on there. They weren't really, it wasn't a very solid fit. So what I decided to do was just to drill out a couple holes for each fan, and that fixed it. They're on there tight now. They'll never come off unless I unscrew them. So that was one of the things that kind of bugged me about this case. It's a cheap case. It's very light. Like I said, I believe it's made entirely out of aluminum, which isn't the worst deal. And there is some clearance on the bottom there. There's a nice big, so I'll be setting the fan. Okay, so here pretty much is how I dress the wires. So this is the non-component side. You can see the 2 hard drives are coming in from this side, so the other side has a very clean look to it. There's the 2 hard drives right there. And there's the fans that I was talking about, the little front panel thing, and then I stuck one up on top as an exhaust fan. So and then there's another 120 millimeter that came with the case, working as an exhaust fan as well. So the 2 in the front are intake fans, and the one on the top and the one on the back are the outtake fans. They're the ones that are exhaust fans. And then again, there's that little Intel CPU fan, which kind of bugs me too, and I'll go into that in a little more detail in a minute. But so this is basically the way the build ended up. I did put one of the DVD ROMs from my old build in it. I don't know why, because I never used the thing, but that's kind of how it is looking now. The next thing I'm going to do to this thing is to upgrade the CPU fan. And the reason I say that is, there it is right there, is the Intel CPU fans are kind of designed with this little plastic tit, I guess is what you'd call it, and it has this little funky mechanism where the little white plastic tips go into the motherboard, and then you stick this little black part, kind of reaches down inside there, and you'll see here in a second here, it kind of pops in there like that, and then you turn this thing, and that's supposed to keep it in there nice and tight. Well, That's just not how this works. Every time I've opened the system up to do whatever, to clean it or to put more memory in it or to do this project, I've always found at least one or maybe in some cases two of those things loose. So I have to go back to the installation process over again, and it's just not a good solution. The solution is to get a fan with, as you can see here, with screws, and that's how you fix it. Anyway, everyone, thanks for watching. Please subscribe if you haven't already. I'm a long way away from being monetized, so help out. Anything you can do to help would be great. Thanks. See you soon.